And here we go. This is episode 3 of We Need to Talk. Welcome back, Alan. How are you? It's so good to see you.
I'm doing well. How are you doing on this fine Saturday afternoon? It's actually really hot here. It's about 75, 80 degrees.
Beautiful. Well, here it is still morning. It's 10:30. I actually started my morning really early today. I had the
Yeah,
first day of the mastermind, so I am very happy to say that was absolutely blissful. It was brilliant. It was beautiful. It was so much more than I could ever expect. So I'm just like I'm on a high today.
that's wonderful. So you mean it's all downhill from now on?
We'll see. We'll see how much of the frequency and the energy of essence I can maintain as all the things in our 3D worlds kind of come
Absolutely.
crashing.
So what are we talking about today?
Oh, well, we thought about a few different topics. I think we came back to codependency, and that one really speaks to me because it was the breadcrumb that got me to my freedom. So when you said, let's talk about codependency, I was like, oh, yeah, let's definitely go there.
So tell me more. Like, look, we hear the word codependency a lot.
Yeah.
Codependent relationship dysfunctional. How would you interpret it, what codependent means?
Yeah. I think for me, when I started to figure out what it meant, um, it was showing up in a way that was reliant on others. So the way that others perceive you, showing up in a way that is more self detrimental and more for the purpose of others. And so to me, codependency is really neglecting and forgetting who we are and suppressing what our truth is to be what someone else wants us or needs us to be. And it is truly within our control, but the way that we show up in life when we don't claim ourselves, our sovereignty, our truth, that becomes codependent. So when we are, and it can be either in service, if we are called to be self-sacrificial and be in service to others, or it can be for others to serve us, and that we need someone else to survive, or we need someone else to really be who we are. I think the truth of the matter is it's all within us. Our truth is within us. Our power is within us. Our essence starts with us. So that's my definition, and that's not the clinical definition, that's for sure.
It's a good one. You did well.
Was that a little codependent? Being happy that I did well.
No codependency here, my dear. That was good. Well said.
Thank you. And how would you define codependence? I would love to hear your perspective or your definition as well.
Well, rather than give a definition, I like to more tell a story, more of a story, is how I see it. And codependency is not just related, I believe, to romantic relationships. It could be anybody, could be good friends. But let's take romance for a second. Two people come together. Let's say they fall in love. The honeymoon phase is fantastic. They both get out of their negative think. They get out of their head. They get out of the way. Their ego's out of the way. They're falling in love. It is blissful. It is amazing. It is exciting. It's probably passionate. And that lasts for a period of time in most cases. So whether it lasts a day or two or three, a week or 2 weeks, whatever. So what happens is from that high, where temporarily two people are meeting in a place which is a very profound place where they've really elevated who they are individually and collectively. However, after a day or two or three, stuff starts to happen. So let's say I have met someone and I'm in love with them and I'm excited about being with them. And then we're at a party and I see them talking to this guy for about 15 minutes in a very intense conversation. And all of a sudden, rushing through my veins is fear and jealousy and worry that she's going to prefer this guy. And this starts to spin out of control. And the reason is because that's why what you said is bang on. it always comes back to the quality of the relationship we have with ourselves. Because if we don't do the healing work from who knows back when we were kids, and we don't sufficiently heal and like ourselves and love ourselves enough so that whether we're with the love or not with the love, we're still pretty damn good. We're not overly dependent. That's how I see codependence. We're overly dependent, as you said, on the love and respect from the other person. But if I love and respect myself sufficiently, even if I fall in love and they reject me, oh, I'm human, I'll be disappointed for a little bit of time. But I pick myself back up because I don't need them to that degree of having that control my life. So independence, a healthy independence, is the only way to have a high level soulmate connection, in my opinion.
Beautiful. Oh, that speaks so true. And you know, when you say like they rejected me, truly, there is no, that it's not possible for someone to reject us. To me, the way that I see it is rejection is protection, and it's divine redirection, because this person was never meant to be in your life, and they gave you a gift of saying, this is not in resonance with me, and it always serves us. Like when someone falls away, or you know, we see it as being rejected, but the truth is, if we're in our essence and trust that everything happens for us, if we're not meant to be with that person, then we will not be. And if we choose to take their saying no, thank you, and maybe they don't say it in that way of no, thank you, but when we trust our spirit and our essence, and when we see it as, oh, okay, I'm not meant to be with this person, then that opens the door to a more aligned partnership or relationship, or you know, space to be with ourselves in that moment. So yeah, that just really rung true to me. It's like that feeling of rejection is because we're placing our value outside of ourselves for what they think about us, but they're not rejecting us, they're just saying doesn't really work for me, like I'm not in.
Totally. And the other day, it was about a week or two ago, I got a call from a friend of mine who we were talking about this very subject, and she was saying how, Alan, I'm very afraid to get rejected. And I said to her, actually, if you really think about it, it's not so much that you're afraid of rejection from another person. You're afraid of your own reaction to them rejecting you. You're actually more worried about rejecting yourself. Because if you weren't so worried about that, then you wouldn't be worried about being rejected, because you'll never, like, you're an amazing person. I haven't known you that long. If you just stopped talking to me and totally rejected me, irrespective of what you call our relationship, friendship, colleague, whatever we are, I would feel bad, but I wouldn't get devastated, because I know that even though you, who seems like such a special person, reject me, hey, I don't reject myself. Oh, it's too bad. We're both missing out on something good here. On to the next.
That's right. That's right. But you have this divine sovereignty. And I think this is what we talk about. We talk about the divine union when we talk about conscious self-care in some other programs that I'm leading and supporting right now. We talk a lot about doing our own work, you know, our shadow work, our essence work, whatever kind of work we're doing. It all comes back and starts with us. So I love that you can actually receive somebody's no and still be okay. And that, I think, is because of the work that you've done to come into wholeness with yourself. And you're right. I think when we are in those codependent relationships, when we are in that space of externalizing our value and our purpose and our way of being, it's when we don't have that relationship with ourselves. It's when we haven't honored who we really are here to be, and we haven't taken the time to develop a relationship where we're no longer rejecting ourselves.
Yeah, and it's very true. And I think back in my life, my main learning lesson this lifetime was all about that. It was all about, I lived in the shadow of my brother, who's 4.5 years older than me. I don't know if I mentioned this to you. Number one in his medical class, good looking as hell, popular. He was a hard act to follow. I was popular, wasn't that great in school, I was a pretty good athlete. He was an amazing athlete. And as I was growing up in my teen years, everybody would compare me to my brother. So I love my brother and he loves me, but the people were giving him all this attention, right? So from an early age in my teens, every time I would see a young lady that I was attracted to, I would go on a date and then not realizing it, but there was an attraction. And I guess they found me interesting at the beginning, but my insecurities came popping up because I thought, oh, I'm not good enough. She's too good for me. I'm not good looking enough. And my insecurities, sabotaged so many potential relationships. But that was the learning lesson I had to finally learn to get fed up enough and say, Allan, this pattern is not serving you. I am going to overcome insecurity. I'm going to learn to love and accept myself at a high level, and I never turn back. So we all have our stuff, and even if you meet your soulmates, a lot of soulmates still have a lot of crap. They run from each other. Because if you're soulmates, you're that connected, all the more reason why if you have too much fear, guess what? That's why they call it the runner and the chaser. One of them starts running, one of them runs toward, because they haven't worked out the inner stuff. Now, if you're true meant to be soulmates, as you heal and grow, maybe separately, maybe together, at some point, when you're sufficiently mature, you can have an all-encompassing, amazing relationship. That's the ultimate soulmate level connection that I think is worthy of admiration, so to speak.
I love that. And so that's so, and you said so many things that I would love to go back to and unpack, but I think what really resonates for me right now is um what is the aligned action from this? Like if someone is hearing this and they are in a relationship, I have a few couples that have come to me and asked me to support them in the storming that they're in right now. Like they're ready to give up. They're ready to throw in the gloves and be like, I'm done. I want to focus on myself. Like I don't even want this relationship anymore. There's other people in relationships who have come to me that are they're still wanting to work on it. They're working really hard. And so I have invited them to work first on themselves and then focus on the relationship. And then there's people who are, perfectly happy in the relationship. They're living their life. They're out there doing their thing, but they're not fully grounded in that sovereignty and in that self confidence. And there's still layers of self rejection that come up, and judgment and shaming and blaming and all the things that stop us from truly embodying our essence and showing up to just be. And so whatever space that people are listening to right now, you talked about soulmates. So I really want to dig into soulmates, but I think that's going to have to be a whole other podcast on its own. So not necessarily to go into the space of soulmates, but I think if someone was hearing this right now and they're having this moment of realization with like, oh shit, it does start with me. What can they do? What do you recommend that they do at this point of awareness?
Well, first of all, I'm not the kind of person that gives one answer for all, everything fits for one answer or whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Doesn't fit, depends on the situation. I could be talking to someone, as I was about a month ago, that was going through a very difficult time in her relationship. But before I could even give her any advice, if she was looking for it, I'd have to ask her a few questions like, what's really the quality of the relationship you're in? Is it someone that is someone you need to get away from? Because the very fact that dysfunction exists is very much has to do with the fact that you've chosen someone that's highly toxic, not open to growing, does not want to change. And unless you get out of that relationship, that which might be the first step, because if you're around that person with that toxicity, you might not yet be ready and able and know even where to go for the next relationship. We need to discern, is this a toxic relationship that you need to get out of? Or is it a relationship that actually has enough qualities about it that the only reason it's not working is because one or both of you still have healing and growing to do? And if you do that healing and growing, then that soulmate quality that you have that surrounds that will just come together no matter what. That's why they often say, if you try to get rid of somebody, say, look, if it's meant to be, it'll come back to you. It'll come back to you if the both of you actually have a great connection. So my first question to them would be, what is the quality? Because if they tell me this ain't going to work, I've been a mother to this person, this is not a man, I'm with a son, then I know, well, hello, how long do you want to stay in that quality of relationship? So I might say to them, you really need to reflect whether you want to stay in this or not. Once they decide to let go, now they could start working on themselves, to work on their emotions, how they accept and how they love themselves, how to communicate more effectively, and how to be not grateful, how to get excited about attracting a real partner, a real man, a real woman into your life. I have friends to this day that are so highly developed spiritually, and one of them still is locked into a codependent relationship, which I've said to her in the past. I said, whenever I think of you guys, I think mother, son. I don't think anything else. But she's not ready to raise the bar and become the woman she needs to become to attract a really quality relationship. That's up to her.
Yeah, and that's actually a really powerful calling in to the people who resonate with that, because I think there are people who identify of being in that relationship, whether it's mother son or whether it's just, any other sort of relationship type that we identify and relate to. But my question, I guess, comes back to, isn't it true that if we were to all do our work and show up for ourselves and really truly embrace and embody our essence and our ability to kind of show up as we are, that dynamic, it exists because, first of all, bringing it back to life being a mirror, right? Life is a mirror to show us what we have the opportunity to look in and transform. That's how I see life, and that's how many philosophers, Carl Jung talks about this. But life being a mirror, and it's starting with us. If we do want to do our inner work, and if our partner actually does their inner work, and we elevate, as you said, together, that relationship will naturally fall back together or apart, right? We're saying that that is possible. I guess my question comes to, if we do decide to do our inner work, do all relationships have to necessarily, just because they're toxic now, doesn't necessarily mean that we can't come to a new relationship with the same person. Sometimes it does take that time apart. And as you said, if we're meant to be together, there's nothing that can keep us apart. I think a lot of people, when they're in that sort of chaotic space of the relationships not working, everyone just wants to blame and shame and point fingers. Oh, it's not working because of you. Truly, the gift is taking personal responsibility and turning it around and doing our own work to see how the way the other person was showing up is actually mirroring our own self-destructiveness. So that's number one. But I think number two, if people are listening to this, and I think back to my parents' relationship, and I think they didn't have the tools or the skills to up level, to do their personal development work, to do all these things. But when I see both of my parents, if they could do that work, they would have been an awesome couple if they only knew. You know what I mean? And so when I hear oh, it's a toxic relationship and it's terrible and you have to get out of it and get away from it. Yes, I think for sure some relationships, and because I think some people are never willing to change, they're just not coachable, they're not willing to go there, they're not willing to take personal responsibility, they just want to should out all over other people. They want to be right all the time. I think those are people who are obviously not willing to do the transformational work.
See, I don't see it as only toxic being the issue. There's also compatibility. I could tell you people that I know, including my parents who were long gone. My mother was an amazing woman. My father, in his own way, was an amazing man. I knew intuitively that they were not really meant to be together, not because it was toxic, but because they were not on the same wavelength. So even if soulmates come, because there's many soulmates, I have to this day a whole bunch of soulmates that I'm grateful for. Soulmates mean we connect on a deep level, but the form that relationship takes might, even if we work on ourselves and our partner works on themselves, we might come to a recognition that we have an incredible friendship, but there's a missing link or two that's keeping it from being even more than that. So it's not just that when people, work on themselves that it guarantees, because I think that nobody can guarantee every soulmate in the world is going to die. You're going to die. I'm going to die. I know it sounds, too blunt, but we can't allow ourselves to be that overly attached to the person, the personality, the physical body, whatever. But if we can elevate our game to the point where we love ourselves and accept ourselves sufficiently, not perfectly, but sufficiently, and we feel like we're living in that state, guess what? We're going to love a lot of people. Now, it doesn't mean we're polyamorous and have sex with 20 people. I didn't mean that. But a lot of people that are in a relationship now, if one raises the bar and feels love and grace and amazing energy, the other one, even if they love them, might not be at that same place and might be intimidated by their partner who has all these other people that this person loves, not romantically, just the fact that they could talk with them and enjoy talking with them for hours would be intimidating to some people. That's a problem. So it's not just toxicity, it's are we sufficiently compatible on enough of the key elements to make it work? Anyway, that's my thought.
I love that. Yeah, that's amazing. So one thing that came up for me while you were sharing is it's so interesting because I think a lot of people, I would say women because that's my personal experience and I can identify with it, but I think a lot of people stop themselves from evolving to that essence, to that place of unconditional love and that way of showing up and connecting with others and just overflowing because they don't want to outgrow the relationship. So they play small. So they limit themselves. So they stay in that little tiny bubble. And I think that, like that to me is suffering. That's where I'm being called. Because as soon as you said that, I was like, oh no, like don't limit yourself just to stay in this relationship because you'll either naturally, as you evolve, you will either call that person forward to evolve with you. They will be inspired. Or as you said, they will feel shame in that light and will not be willing to do the work. But don't you limit yourself for
I
that
agree.
limitation.
I agree with you 100%. And then I think there's another learning lesson for people like you and I that are mentors or coaches. I think this is a big one. This has come up to my attention recently quite a number of times, is that I'll just speak for myself. The more I mentor, the more I coach, the more I realize that I never want to be caught in imposing any of my own beliefs on anybody, because it's not up to me to decide what they really want or what they choose to do or not. I'll give you an example. I had a very dear friend when I lived in Vancouver. I might have said this to you. If I repeat this, stop me. And he was a wonderful guy, born Catholic, very traditional, not overly religious, got married, 25 years of marriage. Most of us friends around him would say to him, why do you stay with her? She's the biggest bitch in the world. So when I would have one-to-one conversation with him, I'd say to him, whatever his name is, why do you stay with her? He said, Alan, I made a decision when I got married, call me old-fashioned, but when I was up there asking for her hand in marriage, it said, come hell or high water, through thick and thin, this is the person you're going to be with. And that's my belief. And I said to him, thank you for sharing that, because now I know that I know exactly what you want, and I'm going to support you in that. And all the more reason, by the way, because he was intrigued by the coaching I did, I said, all the more reason that you need to work on yourself more than ever, because if you're going to stay in that toxic relationship or that toxic environment, you better grow even more within that. But I would never impose that he should leave. We all make choices, and we have to accept the choices with each one of us makes.
That's right. That's right. And that I got full body chills as you were saying, okay, if you choose to stay, if you want to actually have the full range of your human experience, I honor your commitment. And there's an opportunity where you can evolve yourself so you're no longer suffering in this space of whatever that looks like. Maybe it's not chaos to that person. Maybe that's just, how they grew up and it's comfort. And still, it's not 100%, and it's never going to be 100%, but it's not what's possible. And you're right. I love that you shared, even imposing what's possible, even saying, he needs to do this. It's like, well, there's an opportunity here where he can grow himself to better experience what he's chosen for himself, to be in a better headspace, to be in a better heart space, to be more connected in, as you say, to evolve and still be able to withstand the stress of the relationship. Just like in jobs, certain jobs that we have a purpose to do that job, right? But we may not be showing up in a way that's actually really fun or exciting, or we feel successful. We can show up every day at work, we can do the job, we can check the emails, we can have the meetings, we can do the things, we can deliver the product, but we're never truly recognizing our connectedness to the work. We're not in our purpose. We're not living life to its full capacity. And I think that is the invitation. And to me, even coaching and any of the work that we do, to me, it gets us more into that full experience of life, into that full, like, yes, sure, sometimes it's going to be chaos and fighting and arguing and like, crying and screaming and like that anger. All of that is still part of our human experience. It's not meant to be bypassed, right? And I think a lot of us, we would rather be numb than feel it all. And to me, coaching allows people to get into that space. And I'm sorry if you can hear my son in the background. He's just telling his friend, my mom is on a call right now. I can't talk right now. But it gets us to really be able to, I think, show up in all of our human experience in a way with grace and in a way with the capacity to be in that conscious, confident sovereignty of our choice. Just like he has to hear all his friends say, why are you with this bitch? He can be like, don't talk about my wife that way. It's my wife, and I'm proud of our relationship, and I'm proud of the person that I chose to be with. And life's not easy for everyone, and I love her just as she is. You might think of her as a bitch, but that's my wife, right? Like,
Absolutely. And I think I go back to what we might have talked about a bit last week, is that so many people, because of fear and because of insecurity, are afraid to express their, call it what you want, authentic self, your real self, or whatever. That doesn't mean we go around and say whatever we want to anyone in the world. But when it's appropriate, if we know when we're holding back from asserting ourselves in communication, and a lot of people are afraid to step over that line and take a courageous stand to not just accept it psychologically, but to act on it when it's appropriate, to say no when no is the right thing to do, to assert yourself and say, I am not going to accept the way you talk to me. I'm not interested in being any connection with anybody who's going to talk to me so disrespectfully. And I just want you to know that I'm very disappointed in you. I love you, but I'm not going to accept that kind of behavior. Now, a lot of people have trouble saying what I just said. And yet, just coming out of my mouth, I feel good that I had the balls to say that. And I know that on some level, maybe if ever they're going to respect me more, they'll respect me more from the way I just communicated and say, oh, I don't want to hurt you. I'm sorry. I'll just stuff my feelings and I won't communicate.
that's right. That's right. You're absolutely on. That is exactly it. And you know what? I think speaking our truth, and again, I share the experience as a woman in this world. I think it's been a really big growth edge to even say, like, no, I don't want to be touched that way right now. Why? Why is it so hard for us to speak our truth and stand up for what is right for us and our body and our human experience? And it doesn't even have to be like a romantic relationship. Maybe you're, maybe someone tries to give you a hug out of their pure, love and unconditional, and maybe we're just not comfortable being embraced by someone that we barely know, right? It doesn't, but there's so many people that, and I mean, obviously I've been there, so I can speak from my own experience. It's like, you just let it happen. You get into that fight or flight or fawn, which a lot of people don't. We talk about the fight or flight mode, right? Where, again, a lot of studies have been done on men in science. And when we talk about the nervous system, there's the fight or the flight when we get into that sympathetic overdrive, when we're stressed out. But then there's also the freeze and fawn, which we talk a lot less about. And the freeze and the fawn, it's still a survival mode. Like fight or flight is a survival mode to beat the thing off of you or run like the wind away from it. But then there's also the freeze and the fawn. It's like, play small so that it thinks you're dead, so that it'll stop and go away. And I think that's a big part of our society that we don't address. And I think we need to talk about it, and being able to speak your truth and being able to act in your truth, regardless of how that looks or feels. When we are able to show up in that truth, to me, the way that I've seen it is, the universe conspires. And I know this is a little airy fairy and is a little woo woo when I say the universe, but everything around you comes to protect you when you are willing to claim that truth, when you're willing to say, no, that is not going to happen in my life. No, you're not going to touch me this way. No, thank you. I don't want to hug. Or no, I'm not interested in coming to your party where I feel completely uncomfortable because I'm an introvert and I'd rather spend time by myself. And I don't care if you take it the wrong way and you think it means something about you. I'm not comfortable. No, thank you. I'm not going to attend. It's like being able to speak our truth, having the audacity to say, actually, that doesn't work for me. That
So,
shifts everything.
so talking about speaking our truth, I'm going to make a little suggestion.
Yeah.
Before I do, I just want to say what you said before is so right, is that if you align yourself with your higher purpose, the universe, the world will provide you everything you need to get to that place. The one thing I want to make a suggestion, something I've always wanted to do. It's a small little thing, but start almost a revolution on it. It's called acknowledgement revolution, meaning, would you agree that most of us, a lot of us in the world, have been way too hard on ourselves and too self-critical? Would you agree that a lot of us didn't get the love and respect from other people, our parents or whatever? Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm going to make a suggestion. You don't have to say yes, but I think it would be a cool thing.
Okay.
That every podcast we do ends with a simple thing. I'm going to say one thing about you that's an acknowledgement to you, and you say one thing that's an acknowledgement to me. And we end the meeting in that way, and it's a reminder to everyone, go do it. Find one person. If we found one person every day, say, I want to acknowledge you for one thing that I really love about you. And we start to get on a roll. It's one small practical thing that we could spread the word around and have more and more people get used to acknowledging. So are you open to that?
I'm 100% open to it. I'm almost like, Alan, did you read my Instagram or LinkedIn? I can't remember where I posted it, but I literally just posted this. I think divine creation came through me last night or this morning, but I posted the exact same thing about, we can actually show up to appreciate, to show that gratitude, to show that acknowledgement of somebody else. So 100,000%, I am so on board. Yes. Yes.
Before we do it, is another reason that motivated me is the other day, some sportscaster passed away at the age of 57. And I heard eulogies from 4 or 5 people, heartfelt eulogies that they spoke about him. And I was convinced that he never heard those words from those people. So an idea that I had about a week ago, I said, if I take one person per month or one person a week, that I will write a letter to them. It's almost like a eulogy in life about who they are. And if I did that to 3 people or 5 people, and then encourage each one of those 5 to do it to 5 people, and those 5 and those 5 to 5, 5, 5, eventually you're going to have eulogies all around the world spreading, which will be a good foundation for some of the more obviously intense work. It's not going to solve all problems, but it's a step in the right direction. So based on that, you want to start, or do I start with acknowledging you?
I would love to start. I would love to start by acknowledging the way that you show up and the way that you communicate. Because to me, communication is very important. And I don't know that we honor it enough. And I just want to honor you for being so open, so aware, and so willing to communicate exactly what you're thinking and what's on your mind in a way that is easy to receive and that is never presumptive. It's almost like you come with your perspective and you're always open to receiving whatever that looks like, and always asking in such a generous way and such a open way. So I
Wow.
acknowledge you for that and thank you.
Well, thank you. You see, and now I have to receive that. That's another thing. I have to be open to receiving that level of admiration, or respect, and love from you. It's not easy to receive sometimes. So thank you for that. That was really nice. Now it's my turn. I mean, there are a lot of things that I admire about you, respect in you, adore about you. But I got to keep it simple. So what I admire the most, put aside the fact that everyone knows you're a very beautiful woman inside and out, but from a depth level, what I love about you is that you're also, I could have repeated what you said to me, you're an amazing communicator. I love the fact that you're an old soul in a younger body. That I know that a lot of the younger generation, if we can call it that, get criticized for being overly preoccupied with technology, and sometimes not respecting the bottom line interpersonal skills of looking at each other when you talk, really listening. You're an amazing listener. You're attentive. You're present. You're an old soul. You, but are very humble, even though you know you're wise, you know your gifts, you know that you're an amazing person. There's a humility and a desire to help as many people in the world as possible. And I understand you because I think I share some of those qualities, but I wanted to articulate. I know that's more than one thing I said, but that's only the first acknowledgement. You're going to get another one next week anyway. So
Thank you. I thank you so much for that reflection and I fully receive it. And you're right, receiving is something that I have not done well in my life until probably quite recently. And it's funny that you say humble because I think the humility came when I started actually giving myself that receivership, the ability to reflect my own capacity, the ability to look at myself in the mirror and love myself and really truly acknowledge that I do have a gift and that it starts with me and that if I can't receive it from myself, I won't be able to receive it from others. And it's true, that really transformed everything, being able to look myself in the eyes in the mirror and say, you're amazing. And not that sort of like happy bypassing, that toxic happiness of just like, it's perfect, la-di-da. It's like, no, but really, every single one of us has such a beautiful gift to share. And I think it really takes that presence of being with ourselves to acknowledge ourselves to be able to also receive from others. So I am so grateful to be in the space where receiving your compliment is actually possible, because it wasn't before. I used to get very uncomfortable receiving compliments. I think almost my whole life. I haven't received compliments from my parents, and that's probably what created this uncomfortability of receiving. And I think it's really important that we are able to receive because only then we can grow and give.
So can I make a suggestion, a further suggestion, so that we deepen the experience of the acknowledgement and the receiving of the acknowledgement? In that, I'm gonna just say, I'm gonna repeat in a general way, saying I really admire you. You're an amazing person. And sorry, if you were to repeat, don't repeat your acknowledgement to me. But what I was joking about here is that we'd be able to say that, and the other person say, "Thank you very much. Thank you," and not say anything else after.
Let it land.
Because then you have to really let it land. Because
Yeah.
after I said it, you said it, then I realized, oh, I'm listening, hearing her talk, I'm saying all these new things that are going above my head, because I'm too in receiving the acknowledgement, but I need to receive it and be quiet. So maybe I'm just kidding, really. But maybe we could practice that. We just say it, we acknowledge, thank you for very much. I received that, and thank you. Have a great week.
I love that. Yes.
Let it land. I like that expression, letting it land. Well, what we could do is when we give an acknowledgement, we say, would you like to just to receive it and let it land? Or would you like to land it, but you want to say a few more things? That's okay too.
Awesome. I love that. Yes, letting it land is so important. Thank you for that invitation.
So let's do it now and see if it works. So I just want you to know, Ralitza, that you're an amazing person. I'm very glad to have met you. You're humble, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're intuitive, you're wise, and you're compassionate. And I just want you to know that that's how I see you.
Allan, thank you.
You did well. Anything else?
The bliss of it came up after though. Truly that like, that radiance of receiving came up in the moments after actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was
You know, when people talk about intimacy, I mean, in our culture, everyone thinks, oh, sex, sex, sex. But true intimacy, worthy of respect, is emotional intimacy, spiritual intimacy. You could be intimate with other deep souls that are like you. And this is intimate. What I just said to you, and what you said to me, is intimacy of sorts. Most difficult intimacy.
I think I was going to say that's the intimacy that's missing and that's lacking, I think, most in our world. And something you said earlier, we can go around and share our love. It doesn't mean we're going to go and become polyamorous and have sex with everyone. It's like that the fact that we have coded intimacy as only in sexual relationships is a real problem. I think for me growing up as well, when I think about intimacy, I think about like the way that I am with my son. I'm very affectionate. Physical touch is one of our love languages, our primary love languages. And I did not grow up that way. My mom was never affectionate with me. I remember teaching her how to hug when I was in 12th grade, when I came home from my friend's house and their mom hugged me and embraced me. And I was like, I feel like you're my mom more than my own mom. What's going on here? And I realized that like I don't ever really embracing or hugging me. And I think I brought that to the table actually one time and I asked both my parents, I said, what's up with that? Like, what's up with Europeans are seen as cold, And so they explained to me that the coldness was actually taught to them, right? It was taught to them that intimacy only exists in the bedroom and that closeness should never be expressed to people. Like even the children, like you should never kiss your kids unless they're sleeping. Like you should never kiss them on the head, or you should never express that level of intimacy unless they're sleeping. And that was in communism, obviously. So there was a purpose behind that. But I just think it's so interesting that that we're even talking about this, and I was called to share.
Can I just say one last thing before we end? Is that I have a feeling we're going to talk more about emotional intimacy in the future because it's really the core of a lot. But one quick story: when I shifted from the overly sexual focus to the emotional spiritual focus, that for years, as a way of getting back to the world, I was rejected because of insecurity. So I said, okay, screw relationships. I'm just going to have casual encounters and enjoy my life. And so, like a lot of other people, men, whatever, it was kind of a high. You go, who are you going to meet this weekend? And da da da. Eventually, I met a soulmate quality person that we never ended up together, but there was such a connection from the heart and everything. It was my knees were shaking. I could hardly talk to her. And it was meant to be that I meet her because I grew a lot from knowing her. So what happened was that after I experienced that with her, a year or two later, I went on a date. I'll never forget this. I went on a date. It was raining, and my car was here. The woman had a van. We went for coffee. She had 2 kids, and she was sort of lonely and attractive, lonely. We got back in her van, and I was just going to talk with her a little, and all of a sudden, we're kissing each other like teenagers, passionately kissing. I love kissing, by the way. And so we were kissing, and then I left. And when I left, I was depressed. That never happened to me in my entire life. I was depressed because normally if you're going to neck and have fun, usually it's a positive thing, right? And I was depressed. I said, why am I depressed? And I was realized at that moment, I was depressed because I had recently opened up my heart to a profound heart soulmate level connection, which so far exceeded the sexual, that the sex for sex sake was so empty at that moment that I changed forever at that point.
That is deep. So can I ask you a follow-up question? Do you have a little bit more time?
What am I going to do? What's more important than talking with you and talking to the world about this wonderful stuff we're talking about?
It is wonderful stuff. So I have a question about that, because once you have that level of that soul level of connectedness in many different realms, and you know what that looks like, the bar is set pretty high. And I just start to wonder, I don't know, I think you have something to share here, but I've had that experience too, and I haven't, it's not that I'm not open. I'm very open to meeting someone who can take us there, that I can take us there, that they can take us there to that level and beyond, hopefully. But it's almost like part of me is like, was that it? Like, was that my soulmate person that I got to experience? And like, that was it? Is that ever going to come by again? It's like, how do I still maintain faith that that will happen again and even get better when every experience falls a little short? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing, in my opinion, what you're saying, to me, that reflects, if you don't mind me saying this, that you still have subtle attachment to what things need to look like. In other words, you're very questioning it. Tells me that you have grown and healed and come a long way already. But I believe there's another level you could get to. And I know that because I'm at that level, in that there's still a bit of a clinging. Well, I had that, but will I ever have that again? You may or may not. You and I need to do one thing and one thing alone, is fall in love with ourselves to such a level that 24/7, we're having the greatest relationship here, and then enjoy whatever the world, whatever the universe brings us, we will be grateful for. Because of my commitment to emotional intimacy and the development in my own life, I am blessed with amazing people in many different ways. And if I don't have a romantic soulmate at any different part of my life, that's okay with me, because it's meant to be that I don't have that, and that's okay. And I have it all. So I have it all, and yet I have nothing at the same time. No, that sounds funny. So I think it's up to us to elevate our game, so that last clinging attitude we might have to, is that all there is? Well, you don't need anything else. You need to just keep elevating your game and be open to what the unit. Now, I don't know you well enough to know some subtle ways in which you might close your heart, or still have your heart closed to letting it really explode and open up. I don't know you well enough to know, though, because even though you're highly developed, I'm pretty highly developed, we still have stuff. And thank God you're asking me the question. I'm not asking you. I don't have to worry about talking about me.
I love that.
Does that make sense though in any
Yeah,
way?
no, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense.
And by the way, one thing I want to say,
yeah,
in my opinion, is if I was going to attract a high level soulmate, who even if she was the highest level of soulmate, there's no guarantee how long we're going to be together in this life.
that's right.
I already, maybe my true soulmate or twin soul, it was Susie who passed away 15 years ago, and I'll meet her the next time around. I don't know. But what I do know is the only level of soulmate that I would accept into my life is that person has to love me as unconditionally as I'm able to love her. And if not, then I'm not interested in the subtle or not so subtle codependent patterns of in and out, game playing, running, chasing. None of that bullshit. It doesn't interest me. It's boring. And it's a waste of time.
That's right. That's right. Yes, I fully received that message for sure. I want to bring it back. I remember you shared something earlier about checking in on relationships if they meet all of you said there were different levels or different things to
Well,
reflect on.
the deal breakers, I
The
think I
deal
was talking
breakers.
about.
Do you mind if we just reflect on that? Because I remember it was something
Sure.
that came up and I'm like, oh, this would be really powerful for the audience and for myself as well. And I think it'd be great just to kind of to list out. And then I'll appreciate you again before we say bye.
Is that what you're talking about when the deal breaker thing I was talking?
Yeah.
You want me to just go over that or
If you
not?
don't mind, yeah, that would be wonderful.
Okay, it's a simple technique that I use with clients who are really wanting to evaluate their current relationship. It's not the perfect proof. What's the word? It's not 100% the perfect technique, but it helps in most people's lives. So let's say I met you, and you're confused about your relationship. And then I would ask you, take out a pen and paper. I would like you to do the following. Rate your relationship from 0 to 10. 0, absolute lowest, 2, 3, to the high, 7, 8, 9, 10. Rate yourself 1 to 10 on how you feel about this aspect of your relationship that you currently are in. So I'll list the categories. Physical attraction, which often is very high. Physical attraction, mentally stimulating, great conversations, is a great communicator, is highly maybe self-sufficient and financially stable. The quality of the relationship with their family or kids or mother, father, sister, brother, the quality of their relationships with other people. Open-minded to growing and changing and healing. The adventurous spirit that maybe means a lot to you. So you list all the main categories. And then I asked them to put 0 to 10 on each one. It is so revealing. Because at the end of the day, I look at this person, I say, okay, your physical attraction, obviously 8, 9 out of 10, we don't have to worry about that. But 2 or 3 or 4 of some of the most important things for you are low. Okay. So can you see that? Now, could you see if you committed yourself to this person, could you not see that over the long haul, unless something dramatically changes, you might be just not sufficiently inspired and satisfied with that quality of relationship. But if enough of the big deal breakers are there, give physical attraction. If I'm in love and adore this person, if we communicate and we laugh together, we have fun and it's mentally stimulating, we're on the same level, and we can go on, but physically it's 7 out of 10, not 9.5 out of 10. I would take that before it's passion, sex, this, that, looks, all those wonderful things that are going to die away anyway, slowly, whether we like it or not. The person's going to change. But the only people that could truly grow old together are people who have a foundation on most of these deal breakers and in a very significant way. Now, if some of them are low because each one of you or both of you need to work on yourselves more, doesn't mean you throw the relationship away, but at least look at it in the mirror for what it is. And don't start beating yourself up because, geez, what we have is so great. I think he's my soulmate. But the reality is you never really asked for what you want. You haven't had the balls to assert yourself, and you're still in fantasy of what it could be like. And all those things are going to keep, and if you make a decision to get married, that's a big decision. That's why I'm such a believer now, old-fashioned courtship. Big believer.
That's huge, because I think between courtship and honest, open communication and sharing our desires and what we actually want for ourselves in a way that's authentic, not to project someone to have to show up for us the way we want them to, but really just to share even our desires. I think there's a world that opens up to both people to actually co-create that and create a vision together. But if we're not even, if we don't have the audacity to even say like, actually this is what I want, then that vision doesn't exist. It's like you're cutting your both of yourselves short, because maybe I have a vision of you that you don't even know that you're capable of achieving, right? But I say, you know, I've always seen my partner as this and this and this, and you are inspired, as you said before, by that. And all of a sudden, there's a whole other level of evolution that you're willing to achieve because you want that marriage to work well, because you want to have that evolution. So I think it starts with us even honoring what we want in a relationship. So whether you have a partner or you're single, I think this is a really beautiful time to create that list of deal breakers. Because I heard a lot of the things that are commonly important, but how our value system fits into creating our own list of deal breakers is also important.
Yeah, you know what, as I'm listening to you, I realize I want to back up some, I want to go back a little bit on something I said. I am a big believer in the deal breakers, but I'm not a big believer in a shopping list. In that deal breaker, what I mean by deal breakers, you, none of us are perfect. No partnership is perfect. What's most important to me, the number one thing that is the most important, if someone says to me, Alan, what's the number one thing in a relationship, at least for me, it would be an amazing deep connection. That would be number one. Because then there is the hope of an unconditional loving, I adore them, they adore me. And whether they get old and look older, I get older, look older, it doesn't matter, because we got that adoration, that soul admiration. That's number one. The deal breakers are important to some degree because we got to look at our lifestyle and we got to look at some things that are deal breakers. Like, for example, if I said to you, this guy over here is really a great guy, but he smokes 3 packs of cigarettes a day, would that bother you? Would it bother you if
That would
would it
bother me for sure.
would it bother you if he had been in prison for not 10 years? Would it bother you if he was 5'2"?
The prison thing would bother me less because I think people have their evolution and their story and their path and learning and all of that. I think I would hold
How
that
about the
less.
5'2"?
I like to wear heels as long as it doesn't emasculate him that I'm taller.
Okay, so that's good. But you wouldn't accept if he was a cigarette smoker.
I cannot actually. I left a relationship because of the cigarette smoking. They were like,
Okay,
"Okay, I'm quitting. I'm quitting."
so
I can't
that's
stand
what
it.
I'm talking about.
Ugh.
They're deal breakers not because of their problems that
Yes.
are that you or him have. They're just things you're not going to accept. So the deal breakers are good, but if you make a shopping list and you want this perfect person, that's a problem. Because there's no perfection.
But I really appreciate that in creating our deal breakers, we can then put what is the most important thing, because then you
Yes,
can say, like, I can't live without this,
that's
but
good.
these other things I'm willing to, be flexible around. I think you're right. I think that that's the other sort of issue and why we have so many single people in our generation that are in their like 20, 30, 40s, even 50s, is that we've made this laundry list as if we're perfect and we want someone else that's perfect. And yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous.
Yeah, if ever we do a soulmate seminar together, we'll integrate that into the practice.
Yay, let's do it. I heard a calling to create a soulmate seminar together. I'm in. Let's go.
Called the Soulmate Circle.
Love it. Let's do it.
Is anyone going to watch this whole thing?
Probably somebody will, maybe.
How long has it gone for?
I don't know. I'm not counting.
Oh,
Are you?
God.
Maybe an hour.
No, I think it's more than an hour, but that's okay.
It's an hour and 1 minute, Alan.
Wow. Wow, this was great. I really enjoyed it as usual. Every time we chat, it's fun,
As,
meaningful.
yes,
Anything you want to share before we
as
leave?
did I. I just wanted to appreciate you again
I don't
for
know.
trusting this union and collaboration and co-creation. The energy in our first call, the fact that you're so open to just saying like, yeah, let's try this. This is something. And being in this co-creative space constantly that's evolving, I think is one of the gifts of our life experience. And I just so appreciate that you are here and you're open for all of it. So thank you. Thank you for being
Yeah,
here.
I don't throw these compliments around lightly, but I would have to say you're one of the easiest persons that I've ever talked with. It's easy to talk with you. It's effortless. It's easy. There's not a lot of mental, psychological, emotional barriers in the way. So it's an effortless kind of experience communicating at a fun and deep level. So we got to stop giving so many compliments to each other.
Thank you, Alan. You totally botched the experiment. You were just supposed to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ralitza.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alan. And until next time, have a beautiful week and we'll see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take care.